Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session called No More Yelling, Calm, Clear Talk to Help Guide Children's Behavior. Note that this session is being recorded and it will be made available online for viewing. The session is funded by the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan and presented by the Oakland Literacy Council. My name is Amy Gould. I'm a project coordinator with the Oakland Literacy Council. The Council provides many free resources to adult English learners. They include one-on-one tutoring for free, conversation groups for free, Burlington English, which is an online English learning program, and digital literacy support, including computers and internet access. All of these services are available free through the Oakland Literacy Council. To find out more about these services and to find the recording and materials from today's session, visit the Oakland Literacy website at www.oaklandliteracy.com. Today's session will begin with a presentation by our guest speaker. Then we will have some time for your questions. Our speaker will make available a summary of key points and websites from today's session, and this will be emailed directly to you. I'd like to review a few ground rules. First, please keep yourself muted when you're not talking during the session. This will limit distractions. Oh, we have one more person joining us. Good morning. Good morning. So I'm reviewing some ground rules for today's session. Let me share my screen with you. Can see. So let's keep muted unless it's your time to talk. Let's remember to limit personal information. Remember that we are recording. You may change your screen name. Just use your first name or your initials. Do not share your child's name, and do not share your child's school name. You may ask questions at any time by typing into the chat box. And of course, you may ask in the end after the presentation. Okay, at this point, I'm going to mute everyone. And I'd like to start by introducing our speaker, Dr. Rennie Klingelhofer. Rachel is on the faculty of the University of Michigan School of Education. Her degree is in literacy, language, and culture, and her dissertation work focused on language supports that help English learning students participate in rich discussions about text. She's a former first grade teacher and is constantly working in classrooms now as a field instructor for teaching interns and a literacy coach for practicing teachers. Much of her work centers around the use of language, both spoken and written, to communicate ideas effectively, and her commitment to respecting children and nurturing vulnerability to help people connect effectively on emotional levels leads to work like her presentation today. Rachel, thank you very much for being with us today. I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. It's nice to see you. It's nice to see everyone. Good morning. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so Amy, can you give me a thumbs up if you see the No More Yelling title screen? Awesome, okay. So when Amy reached out to me about different things that parents are needing at this time, I reflected a lot about the new world we're in right now with online schooling, online work, and so what I'm going to cover today is useful for working with your children across all contexts, not just the online world, when you're out on the playground, when everyone's back at school and work and that sort of thing. But I decided to focus on applying the ideas to some of the things we're dealing with right now, because as you will see, I have a child working right behind me, like many of us are dealing with. So I wanted to make this useful to you right away in the context you're dealing with. So the premise behind No More Yelling, Calm, Clear Talk to Help Guide Children's Behavior is rooted in the basic fact that our kids need our help. I don't think this is a shocking idea to anyone. We help them in a lot of ways. So we tell them things that we need them to do. We need them to get enough sleep, right? We need to make sure they're eating healthy foods. We need to make sure they're doing their best in school. These are places where we very instinctually know that kids need our help. They're not going to figure it out on their own. Similarly, we tell them things that we know they need to be careful of. We tell them to stay away from fire. We tell them to stay away from knives and dangerous objects. We tell them not to run into the street. So as parents, we are very used to giving our kids help. But there's certain areas where we sometimes think that our kids should just know what to do, as opposed to needing a lot of guidance from us. So I want to give a few examples of that. Time management. We will think our kids just know what time to do things or how to prioritize tasks. They don't without guidance from us. And so that same guidance we use about bedtimes and eating and staying out of the street is going to be necessary for things like time management. I see some nods, so I'm glad that this is sounding like that makes sense to people. Another example, emotional reactions and management of emotions. Again, this is something where we will just think our children should know what's an appropriate way to express an emotion, but they don't. They need our guidance for it. And similarly, relationships, both in the family and with friends. Kids have numerous relationships, and they need guidance sometimes in how to navigate the hard parts of relationships. So there's all kinds of moments in the day where kids are facing decisions and moments where they have to think about their behavior and what to do. And we can see some examples in these pictures here. What I want you to really think about as a parent is that these are opportunities. There are many moments in a day, many feelings that our kids have, many choices, and those are many opportunities to learn. So if we work with our kids, let me back up a little bit here. If we work with our child on time management now, they're going to be good at it as adults. You know, they're going to have those skills that they take into the future. If we work with our kids now on how to manage their emotions, they're going to grow into adults who know how to appropriately have and experience emotions, but manage them in reasonable ways. And if we work with our kids now about the tough parts of relationships, they're going to carry that into adulthood too. So that's the premise I'm working from, that our kids need our guidance. They don't just know how to do some of this. Does that make sense so far? So what I'm going to focus on today, because there are a lot of ways that we support our kids through modeling, you know, like when we have an argument with someone in the household, the way we handle our emotions, they learn from that. What foods we choose to eat and how much we choose to go outside and get fresh air, they learn from that. But other ways that our kids learn from us is from our explicit language, the way we talk to them about the things that we are working with them on. So I'm going to cover 5 key ideas today about the language we use with our children. One is switching from don't to do. The next is being specific. And then we have what we call the 3 R's: reinforce, remind, and redirect. And I'm going to talk about all 5 of these, but I just wanted you to have an idea of where we're going. We're going to cover 5 areas. Again, to try to make this practical for you, I decided the best way to do it was to practice applying these ideas to actual scenarios. And I was trying to think of ones that we are encountering, both because we all have children, I'm assuming, or are working with children, and because of the context we're in these days. So the first one I thought of was messes, especially messy workspaces where our kids need to get their things done, and it might look a little bit like this. Does this look familiar to any people? So that is an area we struggle with our kids, right? Another one is fighting, particularly with siblings, and fighting getting physical. What I'm going to share can also apply to verbal fighting, you know, screaming at each other, that kind of intense fighting. But I was thinking mostly of when it gets physical and there's punching, kicking, pushing, that sort of thing. And a third one is mom or dad is trying to get something done, a phone call, a computer task, something that requires some focus, and our kids are not allowing the quiet space we need to get our work done. So hopefully these 3 scenarios that we're going to keep going back to practice what I'm going to present to you are things that are relatable to you, and you've had moments like this. So let's talk about the first one. Switch from don't to do. The idea behind this one is, instead of a lot of people, this is with teachers, parents, everybody, we tend to say like what we don't want them to do way more than we tell them what we do want them to do. And this can be a little language switch that takes some practice, but it can really help. So let's look at some examples. We'll say things like no, don't, stop, and we might add whatever words after that that make sense. We want to try to move away from that language and closer to language like yes, do, and start. Let me make this a little more realistic for you with a scenario. So we have 2 kids fighting in our household. We might want to say to them, no fighting, don't hit, stop it. Let me just tell you, I'm preaching this. I've said all 3 of these things. It's not like saying them is damaging, okay? It's just not always as effective, okay? So don't think, oh my gosh, I've said this, I'm doing it wrong. No. It's not damaging kids to say don't hit. It's just not always effective at getting them to change their behavior, because we're telling them not to do something, but not giving them an alternative of what we do want them to do. So instead, it can be more effective to say things like walk away. So they're starting to fight, and we look at them and we say walk away. Use words. We're telling them we see you're in a conflict. Don't hit. Use words to talk about it. Or we can say to them, get an adult. When it gets this heated, they need to get an adult to come help them. That is the expectation. These are the words we're saying to them. That's why I have it in like little talking bubbles. Oops. That's why I have it in these little talking bubbles, is these are the things we're saying to them. Does this part make sense, what I'm saying about switching from the do's to the don'ts? And feel free to use the chat too. I don't have it open. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to scoot the chat over here in case anybody has anything to add. Let's look at another scenario. Oops. So you're trying to get, am I on the right page? Yeah. You're trying to get something done, and your child has decided to practice drumming on the pots, or they're having some sort of screaming game together. It's too loud. Our instinct is to say things like, no yelling. Don't come in here. Stop it. Stop it is a classic. That was on the previous slide too. Just we in general say stop it to kids like crazy, but we don't tend to tell them what we do want them to do. So I want to invite you in the chat. I'll give an example. Like an alternative is saying something like lower the volume. That's telling them what we do want them to do. If you were in a scenario like this, is there anything you can think of that you could say to your kid that you do want them to do? Feel free to use the chat to offer it, or I'm fine if you unmute for a moment. Examples if we don't, but. Amy offered, go into the other room. That is what we do want them to do. Other ideas? Some that I had. Go outside, which is a lot like Amy's. We need them in a different space if they're going to be that loud. Or quite simply, play quieter. That's different than no yelling, because we're saying what we do want them to do as opposed to what we don't want them to do. Making sense? A lot of times if you catch yourself saying the no's, like no yelling, just add on to it. If a little buzzer goes off and goes, oh, I told them what I don't want them to do. Again, that's not damaging, but adding on then what you do want them to do. No yelling. Ding, play quieter. Or don't come in here. Let's go back to the don't come in here. Go outside is something you could add on. So it's not that the no's are a huge problem. They're just not always as effective because we don't give the kids what we want them to do. Let's apply this to the third scenario, this crazy workspace where they're supposed to go to school now, right? No messes, we might say. Don't make a mess. Stop it, or stop this. What could we say instead to a kid about this workspace? Any ideas? What do we want them to do? I'll offer one. Tidy your desk. Any other ideas?
Could we say make room for your books?
Mm-hmm.
Or keep your room clean?
Mm-hmm. That's positive. That's saying what we want them to do. Exactly. We can also try clean up, put things away. All of those are saying what we do want them to do. Now, just look at the difference. I know it's very tiny, and to us, the meanings might seem the same way, but to children who are learning, when we say, don't make a mess, what's sticking at their head is a mess. They don't know exactly what do I do instead. So we're telling them, tidy your desk, clean this up, put things away. And this will connect with the next item I'm going to get to, where I talk about being specific. So you might not just say put things away. You might say put all of these pencils away, or put all of these books away. And we'll get into that in the next item. So the next one is be specific. A lot of times we use abstract language with our kids, things like be good. Well, our kids don't always know what good means, you know, or we might say control yourself. Well, they don't know what that looks like. They need more specifics. So then my little logo for this is hitting the target, like getting very specific about what you want. So be good. That's not nice. Calm down. That are abstract. What does good look like? What does nice look and sound like? What does it look and sound like to be calm? So instead, if we say things like stay seated, that's a calm behavior, right? Keep your eyes on your teacher. I think that's what we mean when we say things like be good in school, right? So on the Zoom meeting, we want their eyes on there. Your words were rude. That's specific. So instead of saying that's not nice, we're telling them the words you chose were rude. Say please and thank you. This is another one tied to the idea of calm. Close your eyes and take 5 slow, deep breaths. Do you see how much more specific that is than telling a child calm down? They don't know how to calm down sometimes. But if we tell them, close your eyes, and we sit there with them and we make them do it. Now take 5 slow, deep breaths. Then we can label that after. That is a way to calm down. But if they haven't been taught that yet, it's our job to teach them. Use an inside voice. Again, that's something where if a kid's screaming in the house, we might say, be good. Or alternatively, like our first item, stop it. But if we say use an inside voice, that is both telling them what we do want them to do, and it's being very specific about the thing we're talking about. You with me on this one? So let's go back. We got our messy desk. I've been sort of alternating the order that we're going to address these scenarios. So this one I'll model for you. This is messy, we'll say. Well, they might not exactly know like how you're defining messy. Why is this messy? I know as a parent, I know. Like we're all like, what? How do you not know this is messy? But they're children. They don't necessarily know. Think of the worlds they're in. You know, they don't necessarily know what you're meaning by messy. So instead, if we say things like, you need space to work, that is getting at our point. We need an open workspace where they can write with their pencils or whatever they need to do. Each item needs a spot. So we need a place for the pencils. We need a place for the papers. We need a place for the books. And we can get into with them the why. Your work will stay organized. So tidy up your space so you're organized. That's telling them what we want them to do and getting specific about why. Oops. I'll keep that on there for a moment because I can tell some people are writing. Questions on this scenario or this concept? Okay.
I have a question, Rachel.
Sure, Amy.
How old does your child have to be able to do these things? For example, you know, each item needs a spot. Maybe they've never organized anything before.
That's a great question. So a lot of these things, much like the calming down, once you've taught it, you can move to more abstract language. Like if your child knows 3 ways to calm down, it can be appropriate then to say, you need to calm down. Use one of your strategies, you know, instead of walking them through a whole thing. If their desk looks like this and they have never been asked like to clean it up, or you've always cleaned it up, I know that's a scenario I fall into because I can be a little bit controlling, so I'll just clean it myself. We might need to do a longer session where we walk them through that, Amy, like you're saying, like where we say, and maybe we even build a little checklist, like pencils or like writing utensils, you know, pencils, crayons, markers, and we have a little checkbox. Papers, a little checkbox. Books, a little checkbox. And we show them how to use that. We say, okay, I'm going to help you clean your desk today. I'm going to help you tidy it up. I'm going to help you put each item in a spot. And you establish with your child where everything's going to go. But then the next time it ends up looking like this, and you're cooking dinner and you're taking a phone call from your mother and all kinds of things, and you can't sit by them, you can give them that same little checklist you created, and you can go to them and say, each item needs a spot. By the time I'm off the phone in 20 minutes, I want to see all of these items on the checklist in a spot. So we're getting specific instead of saying just, when I get off the phone, I want your desk to have no messes. When I get off the phone, I want it tidy. It's a little vague. If we say, when I get off the phone, I want the writing utensils, the papers, and the books in their spots. That's much more specific. But it does take some coaching for some of them, and that will depend on their age for sure. Much like the calming down, like telling someone to take telling an 8-year-old to take a deep breath, they know what that means. Telling a 3-year-old to take a deep breath is going to sound different. It's going to be more like, okay, I want to teach you something that's going to help you calm down right now. Watch mommy. I'm going to take a deep breath. Put your hand on mommy's belly and chest and feel it. All right, now I'm going to put my hand on your belly and chest, and I want you to take a deep breath. I want to feel it. Now, that'll work great with a 3-year-old. Try doing that with an 8-year-old, and they're going to be like, or a 11-year-old, and they're going to be like, what the heck? Get away from me. You know, they get it. So all of this does have to be tweaked a little according to the age, but it definitely Amy makes a great point that it's hard to have them do something you haven't taught them how to do, okay? Any more questions? Okay, so let's talk about being specific here with our very loud child while we're trying to work. We might say something like, that's too wild. You're being too wild in the house. Wild is kind of, especially for a kid, vague. I mean, they're always wild in some way, right? They're always kind of following their instincts. But if we say something to them like, I cannot hear, then they are starting to understand like what the problem is. We're getting more specific. I cannot hear my phone call. I cannot hear my meeting. This is distracting my attention. That's very specific. We're telling them exactly what the problem is. This is not a choice right now. Very clear. Like, we're getting specific. What you're doing right now, it's not okay. It's not an option. Oops. I want to say one story about this idea of pointing out the problem to them in specifics. I read a book. I maybe should have this on the slide, or I'll send it out in the notes. It's called How to Talk So Your Children Will Listen and Listen So Your Children Will Talk. Or it might be the reverse of that. I forget. I'll look it up and I'll send it to Amy for the notes. And one of the things they talk about is that children feel empowered when you name a problem and the child feels empowered to fix it. And I didn't believe this. And my daughter, when she was 2, used to take all the magnet letters off the fridge and knock them all on the floor. And then while I'm trying to cook dinner and things, there's magnet letters all over the floor. Can you picture this? And I was very frustrated. And then I would say, Holly, come in here and I need you to clean up the magnet letters. And she would come in and she'd put 1 or 2 back on the fridge. And then it was over. You know, she'd wander away. Holly, come in here. You got to clean up these magnet letters. And it would be this ongoing 20-minute battle to get all the magnet letters. And many times I just ended up doing it myself. Then I took this idea of being specific and sort of combined it with that other book I was saying about there being a problem. And I said it with total skepticism. I said, oh no, there's a problem. The magnet letters are all over the floor and I'm stepping on them. And then I just waited thinking there's no way this is gonna, and she came in and she picked up every letter and put it on the fridge because I had stated what the problem was. I wasn't just saying, clean up the magnet letters. I had gotten specific about what the problem was. The magnet letters were all over the floor and I was stepping on them. And then also, instead of telling her what to do in that moment, I just said it and let her solve it, and she felt some empowerment there. So this is a little bit of an impromptu add-on I'm saying right here, but you can potentially say with specificity to your kid, I'm distracted right now, or I can't hear the caller. Or like if you pause it and your phone call or your meeting and you say, I have a problem, I can't hear right now. Sometimes they get to it themselves and they'll say, I'll go outside or I'll choose something else, you know, because it has to do with just us getting very specific for them. They don't always know why we're frustrated with them. But if we get very specific about it, they can want to be helpful often. Let's apply being specific to one more. So kids are fighting and we might say to them, be nice, be kind, be gentle. Again, these are vague terms to them. They don't always know exactly what we mean and how you're connecting it to their behavior in that moment. So instead we might say something like, put your hands at your sides. Like right now, I need your hands at your sides. You guys are mad at each other and we need to talk about this without any physical. I used this example earlier. You need to walk away, we can say. You're clearly too angry. You need to walk away. We're telling them exactly what to do. Separate now. And again, this is age specific. Like my kids, 9 and 11, know what it means to separate. So I'll tell them to go in their rooms or whatever. Oops. Any other ideas for this one when your kids are fighting of how to be specific about what you need them to do? Take a break is another one we can use. Again, that's one a little bit that you have to have done some ahead of time work about what it means to take a break. So in our house, take a break means I'm really worked up. I need to go color or read a book. And then mom's going to help us with this conflict later, you know. But right now we're too worked up. We need to take a break. Okay. All right. So these two ideas of being of switching from don't to do and being specific are kind of cross-cutting. They're kind of in all of our language. The more we focus on what we do want them to do and the more specific we get, the more helpful it is. The next three, which we call the 3 R's, reinforce, remind, and redirect, are actual like moves we do. And within each of those, we can use do's instead of don'ts, and we can be specific. So they kind of nest within these 2 categories. So reinforce means we have to notice the positive. There's a lot of research on teachers and parents. We notice our kids when they're doing the wrong thing, when they're making choices we disagree with, and then we ignore them when they're doing the right thing, right? Like we don't say anything about it. And you have to think about attention is like the currency our kids are working in. They want our attention. So if we pay them attention for good behavior, they're going to keep doing that. If they get way more attention for bad behavior, many are inclined to stick with the bad behavior because at least mom hung up the phone, or at least mom stopped whatever she's doing to pay attention to me. So we want to give them attention for the things that they're doing right. And we also want to name it so they notice that that was effective. So I put little fireworks, like let's have a party, let's have a celebration when our kids are doing the right thing.
Sorry, can I ask? What's meaning
Sure.
attention? Pay them attention? Means,
What is the word?
yeah, be careful.
Like talk. No, yeah, I know what you're saying. Like when thing's dangerous, we'll say, pay attention so you don't get hurt. Pay attention can also mean like just looking at them, talking to them, giving them our attention. You know what I mean? Does that help?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're welcome. So here are some examples of noticing the positive language. I appreciate. You remembered. It was helpful when you. I noticed. I am glad to see you, and then whatever they did. I saw that it worked when you. Things went better when you. Oops. So these are all examples of us noticing when our kids did skillful things, when our kids made good choices, when our kids were strategic about something. And again, that's automatically switching from don't to do because we're noticing the positive. But notice I'm not saying things like, I'm glad to see you didn't pull the dog's tail. Instead, we're going to say, I'm glad to see you were gentle with the dog. You know, like we're going to say the thing they did, not the thing they didn't do. And we're going to be specific. Again, like instead of saying, I'm glad to see you were nice to the dog, we're going to say, I'm glad to see you used gentle hands with the dog. You made sure that your hands were peaceful on the dog or whatever, you know. So we're being specific and naming what we did see them do. So let's look at how we could apply this to some kids fighting. Now, let's say they don't fight, they make a better choice and they end up talking out their problem, okay? You can hear from their voices, they're having a conflict, but they didn't fight, they're talking it out. Many, many parents and teachers go about their day. They see this happening and they're like, okay, good, I don't have to deal with a fight. But they don't say to their children how helpful that was. We don't name it for them. So when we see that our kids were about to have a fight, but fixed it, they chose a different thing, we can say things like, I noticed you talked about your disagreement and we're able to solve it. I saw you walk away when you got angry and no one got hurt. I have a typo there, I can fix it, but it's supposed to say, and no one got hurt. It was helpful when you offered a compromise. Does this make sense? We can't just ignore when they're doing their good choices, because then it just doesn't help reinforce it. When they know, just like think of you at work, or you with your spouse, or you with your own parents, even if they're, you know, they're grown. Doesn't it feel good when someone notices what you do, you know, and it makes you want to do it again? Let's think about the messy desk, and let's say the child cleaned it up.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Could you see again? One before.
Oh, go back to here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So think for a moment while I keep this slide up of what are ways we could notice it when a child cleans up their desk. It could be whether we ask them to or not. They could do it independently, which even more you might praise. Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. So let's say their desk looked like that, and now it looks like this. What's something positive we could say? I'll give a couple examples. I see that everything you need is easy to find. So that's positive and it's specific. I'm not just saying, I see your desk looks nice. Like, how are we defining nice? Nice here, what we want for their desk is that they can find everything they need. Things went better this week when you were able to find your work. So maybe their desk was so messy, they couldn't find the work they needed for school. You had a big talk with them about cleaning it up. You did something like what Amy mentioned, where we kind of coached them through how to clean up their desk. And that week at school goes so much smoother. We should acknowledge that. Things went better this week when you were able to find your work. High five, you know, we celebrate it. It was helpful that you organized your desk at the end of each day. So maybe your kid on a Monday says, Mom, I cleaned, because you had some arguments or some conflict about the messy desk or some missing work. And on a Monday, again, I know you're a busy parent like me. You're stirring sauce and you're returning an email, and the kid comes and says, Mom, after school today, I put everything back where it should go. And it's very easy because we're distracted to go like, oh, good job, honey. Good job isn't very specific. Good job is kind of like, you know, it doesn't mean much to them. But if we can actually just pause for a moment and say, so you decided after school is a good time to put everything away. You'll be all set for tomorrow. It takes 10 extra seconds, but it reinforces their behavior and their choice so much better. Of all the things I'm covering today, I can tell you reinforcing is the thing we do the least, and it has the most payoff. Notice when your kids are making great choices. So let's say we have a kid being loud while we're in a meeting, and then they make a better choice. They color while we're in a meeting. We could say to them, you remembered to choose a quiet activity when I was in my meeting. You were helpful when you went outside to play when I got that phone call. So if you get an important phone call and you say to your kids, this is my boss, it's important, and they go outside, when they come back in, second R, remind, get ahead of trouble spots. So this is the idea that our kids, we know sometimes when there's going to be something that's hard for them, and it doesn't mean they can't do it, but they might need a little reminder, a little prep. So like I told my kids before this meeting, we've all been working together all fall, and sometimes they interrupt me, and sometimes it's okay. I'm teaching my students at U of M, and they know I have kids, and they'll see them come up and hug me or ask me a question. But I said to them, I'm giving a meeting to people I don't know very well today. It's really important. I need you to not interrupt me. This is an example of a reminder. They know they're never supposed to interrupt me, but I knew there was a particular part of today where I needed them to really make sure. And so I reminded them. So here's what reminding language sounds like. Remember to, It can be a question too. How will you? You can say something like, Mom has a meeting today from 10 to 11. How will you make sure that you're quiet? How will you make sure you don't disturb me? And that'll help them make a plan. This has been a problem. What will you do this time? So I might say to my daughter, her job is to empty the dishwasher every day, and she does about half of it and then gets distracted. So when it's time to empty the dishwasher, I might say to her, this has been a problem. You start the dishwasher and you don't finish it. How will you do it this time so that you finish the whole thing? That's reminding her. She's not in trouble yet. She didn't screw it up yet. I just know this is a trouble spot. And so I want to remind her of the expectations. This is a great one when you can express to them that you're confident. I am confident that you two can work out your conflict without hitting each other. Or sometimes my kid has a meltdown, is very upset about something, and I can't be with him right then. And I can put him on the couch or in his room and say, I am confident that you're going to be able to calm yourself down. So it's letting them know, you know how to do this. Let's get ready to. Let's make a plan. Here are the expectations. We're just reminding them. Here are the expectations when we're waiting in this waiting room at the doctor's office. You might in the car before you go in say, here are the expectations. Other people are sitting in there. You need to use an indoor voice. Your choices are to read or use your tablet. You need to stay in your chair. Okay. These are the expectations. So let's do some reminding. Here's the desk that could get messy. We can say, how will you make sure your workspace is tidied up at the end of the day? We're reminding them of that expectation. They haven't screwed it up yet, but it's been a problem, so we're reminding them. We could say to them, I know you will put your tools back when you're done with them. Or we might say, here's what I expect your desk to look like before you go outside. Writing utensils in their place, books put away, papers stacked neatly. If we sense a conflict is brewing with our kids, they're starting to argue about something, we might say to them, this kind of disagreement has often led to screaming and hitting. What will you do differently now? Just comment on it. You don't have to get all involved, but you just comment to activate their brains that they have other tools. We could say, I'm confident you can solve this, or walk away from each other. I'm confident you can do one of those two things. Or let's make a plan for some ways to solve this disagreement. Now notice that some of these work when you're in a rush and you don't have time to really get involved, and some of them work for when you do have time to kind of get involved a little and help remind them of expectations. So you pick what works best. But the point is, you see trouble brewing, it's that little feeling in the back of your head as a parent, like, uh-oh, and you intervene. You remind them of what's expected of them. Okay, so mom's trying to work. She has a big meeting or a phone call, and her kid needs to make sure that they don't interrupt. Remember to choose a quiet activity when I am in this meeting. What will you do for 90 minutes while I do my work? I know you can find a quiet activity while I am on this phone call. We're just reminding them, and it can be real quick. Like my phone rings and I answer and I go, hold on one moment. I know you can find something to do that's quiet while I'm on this phone call. I'm just reminding them, and then I go back to my phone call, okay? Because there's a part of my brain going, this could be trouble. I'm going to remind them. And then the last one I want to talk about today is redirecting, and this is about changing choices. When they're making a poor choice, an unhelpful choice, what language do we use to get them back on track? So this language sounds like stop, blank, now, blank. So we're telling them what to stop doing, but then we're telling them what we do want them to do. Remember that? Focus on the positive, switch from don't to do. So we might need to tell them, stop whatever you're about to do. Stop playing with that candle. Stop, something emergency. Now, step away from it and find something else to do. Make another choice right now. Something we can tell them. This is not acceptable. You may blank or blank. So you're in that doctor's office and they're climbing all over the chairs and being loud. You can say, this is not acceptable. You may read or play on your tablet. We're telling them the two choices. I put name in here because sometimes when you insert your kid's name, it can like give it a little more power, you know? So sometimes I'll see my kid doing something that I know, gosh darn well, that they know they're not supposed to be doing. So I might just say, Oscar, stop and think about what you're doing. That's my redirection. That's me getting him to notice what he's doing and change it. And then we can just say, go wherever, go to your bedroom, go to the basement, go outside, whatever they're doing, we can say, you need to go somewhere else because what you're doing right now is not working. This is the example I talked about before. Blank is a problem. Fix it now. The magnet letters all over the floor is a problem. Fix it now. Your workspace looking like this is a problem. Fix it now. You two hitting each other is a huge problem. Fix it now. So let's talk about redirecting language. We have a loud kid while we're trying to work. We can say, you may not be in this room right now. Go somewhere else. Do you see how much more specific that is than stop it? Like so often we just want to say, stop it. But instead we can stay calm and we can say, you may not be in this room right now. Go somewhere else. I'm not saying we have to be sugary and flowery. We can talk firmly to our kids. We don't have to be like, oh, baby, you can't be in here right now. No, we are a parent and we're allowed to firmly direct our kids. But it's different than just going, stop it. That's not usually very helpful for the family dynamic. So again, calmly but firmly, we can say, I cannot hear my coworkers. Do something else now. This is not acceptable. Go to your room or go outside. With the messy desk, we could say, this messy desk is not usable for work. Fix it now. Look at your desk, fix the problems. We're telling them what we want them to do. Stop playing, now go tidy your desk. Fighting, we could say, stop hitting, now go to separate rooms. Choose another way to express yourself right now. Now again, you will have to have taught them a repertoire. They need to know different ways to express themselves. Hitting is unacceptable in this family. Use words and a calm voice. I feel weird because I'm using all this firm language at you guys on Zoom. I feel like I'm scolding you. Okay, so those are the 5 items I wanted to cover. I wanted to give you this reference. This book is more for teachers than parents, but it's the source of a lot of this, and I find it very useful still as a parent. It's called The Power of Our Words. And again, it says teacher language that helps children learn. So their scenarios are all very classroom-based, but they still give these same, this is where I've drawn these ideas from. And again, I want to make sure that you have a summary of what the 5 ideas were for today. Switch from do to don't, or from don't to do. Be specific. Reinforce, which is noticing when they're doing the right thing. Remind, which is noticing when it might be a problem and kind of reminding them of the expectation. And redirect is they're making wrong choices, and we're going to be firm and clear and specific about what we do want them to do instead. And the big message of all of this is our kids need our language and our talk about things in order to get better. They don't just figure it out all on their own. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. And yeah, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I'm open to any questions or comments. You can feel free to use the chat or talk, of course.
I just want to say thank you. It sounds like easy things, but hard to make it happen. It's how to use it every day. It's hard to remember how to use it.
That makes a lot of sense. Don't
Did Rachel freeze up for?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Well, maybe she has all her children using her internet. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are,
Wait.
Rachel.
Okay.
Okay. We missed your whole answer. Okay.
No, that's fine. I knew I stopped because I go, you're all frozen, so that means I'm frozen. Maybe like take a Post-it or something of one and put it on your fridge and just say, this week, I'm going to switch from don't to do. That's my goal this week. And it'll start to become habit. You know, it might be 2 weeks you focus on it. Then the next week, add in, I'm going to get more specific. I'm going to make sure I'm telling them exactly what I want. And I'm not just saying things like good, nice, and I'm going to get more specific about, or calm. I'm going to get more specific about what that looks like. Then the next week, add in, you know, and
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I think
Carla?
it was, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if everybody can hear you, but I think it was mute.
Oh, was it muted?
No?
I could hear. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's okay, Carla. I'll repeat it really quick. I was just suggesting that you focus on one at a time and like put a little Post-it somewhere where you'll see it a lot. I tend to think of the fridge because moms are in the kitchen a lot usually, you know, that's where the action is. But you could put it in several places too. Like my kids fight in the bathroom a lot, like when they're brushing their teeth. So I might put a Post-it in my bathroom because that's where I'm going to go in and like lose it and start yelling. And instead I'll see that Post-it that says, switch from don't to do. And then I'll go, okay, instead of saying, don't fight, don't push each other in the bathroom, I'll say, be calm in the bathroom, stand apart from each other in the bathroom. And I'm switching to what I do want them to do. And then after a couple weeks, when you feel like that's getting more automatic, switch to the next strategy and put it up there.
Yeah.
But I think the two best to start with are switching from don't to do and reinforcing, noticing when they're making the right choices. If you start reinforcing, you're going to see a lot of dramatic change very quickly because they like the positive attention.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Akiko, yeah.
Would you mind if I ask a little bit different one? Because my son is a little bit no energy and she's very quiet.
Your son is quiet and low energy. Okay.
Very, very quiet and no energy. And then I don't have chance to don't something. Please do something. Please do something. Yeah. And would you tell me something like from?
So is it like about getting him active, like outside and playing, or is it about, can you give me like a scenario, kind of like what's a common argument you have or a common problem you're trying to solve?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure the question.
What I'm thinking, Akiko, is maybe it has to do with being specific, that second one, you know, number two. So like instead of telling him go play or go do something, get specific. Say, go outside and ride your bike around the block 2 times, you know, or I want you to go color a picture of what you want to do this weekend, you know, something that gets him doing more action, but get specific with him, like give him like a task as opposed to just get busy or do something, you know. Does that help?
Yes. Actually, I try to let something work or run or bicycle, but he always know I'm tired. Yeah.
Well, you could try some reinforcing then, like maybe tell him you're going to time him. How long does it take him to ride around the block? And then the next day say, I wonder if you can do it even faster today. You know, like try to and then be like, yeah, you got faster today. Like try to celebrate like little ways he's getting more active, you know. And you can also help him notice inside how it feels. Like, don't you feel nice, all that fresh air and all that, the way your body gets like you know, feeling clear from energy or from exercise. Help him notice how it's benefiting him, you know.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that might be all we have time for today. There's just a minute left. So I'd like to use that minute to thank you very much for all of the information that you shared with us. I think we all learned some better ways, or I know I learned some better ways that I could talk with my children. So, and I saw lots of note taking. Everyone should know we will send the notes to you. I will send the notes to you once Rachel gets them to me. And we will also post them on the Oakland Literacy website along with the recording from today, so you can refer back to it if you need to. But thank you everyone for coming today. And I'm going to end the meeting now, but thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for sharing. Bye.